Hey everybody, how are you? Sean and Ellie here for WhoCulture, and we are going to be going through everything that we know and suspect about who's going to appear in the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. Now, before we get into all of that, how are you, Ellie? Are you well?
I am very well. I've just about got over all the news that they keep throwing at us.
That is gas because actually, if you think about it, now it kind of feels like, back in 2009 when you couldn't go near a piece of media without David Tennant's head just kind of popping up and saying hello. It kind of feels a bit like then.
Yeah, it feels like we've kind of traveled back in time a little bit.
It's on theme. It's great. Speaking of traveling back on time, I love how this is absolutely the first take of this video. So, I mean, we've so much to get through. So we've put out a couple of polls online, and so thank you very much straight away to everyone who has responded with your theories and what's coming. Just really quickly though, at the beginning of this, as we go into, we are recording this on the 21st of November 2022, which means we're 2 days before the 59th birthday of Doctor Who. So it seems like a good point to go, Ellie, why and when did you start watching Doctor Who?
Well, turns out I've been lying to everybody
Quoi?
because I found out the other day. I just assumed that I started watching it in 2005 when it came back on. That was what I always thought.
Mm-hmm.
Except I was talking to my mum the other day and she was like, "You didn't watch it when it first came back on. You were way too scared of it." So I have seen them all. And I remember watching those first ones being young, but apparently I wasn't as young as I thought I was. Um, I definitely remember watching the Christmas Invasion. Whether
Okay.
that was live or not, I'm not sure. I feel like maybe that's when I started and
I
then
think a
went
lot
back
of
and watched
people
the other ones.
I think a lot of people probably jumped in at that one because Christmas Day. So you have a
Yeah.
lot of people tend to be home on Christmas Day. Um and that is why, and also there was such buzz about it. However, I did not start watching until it was actually a little bit later in the day. So I was aware of it. I had watched Rose, but I didn't sit down to watch Rose. It was just that Dad was watching it. Dad, as we know, Paul Ferrick has been at least a mentioned guest on this channel several times. So Doctor Who was well known in the house, but it was the first episode I sat down on a Saturday evening to go, I'm watching Doctor Who, was Planet of the Ood.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think I sat down the next Saturday, I'm not going to lie.
I feel like the
Um,
Ood aren't really a good place to start if you're new.
a little bit. Love them now because they're so charming and lovely. But yeah, as my introduction to Doctor Who has been like, okie dokie. Because at the time I was seeing someone who was big, massive Doctor Who fan. Of course, Dad was trying to get me into Doctor Who as well. But it actually took the episode Turn Left to be like, right, boom, no, I'm sold. Um, and between that episode and the next week, I think I watched half of Torchwood as well as trying
Yeah.
to catch up with Doctor Who.
I think the thing is as well is for people like us who have now watched it so much, it's
Mm,
really hard to work out when was the first time.
yeah.
Like I remember watching them all, but do I remember watching them all for the first time or do I remember like I've seen them countless times? It's it all
Yeah, that
merges into one.
does a little bit. Does a little bit. Yeah, I caught a lot of them on DVD rewatch, but by the time the 50th rolled around, which was terrifyingly 9 years ago, I was an absolute convert at that stage. I mean,
Mhm.
I saw it in the cinema. I was hook, line, and sinker. I was there with Dad and a few mates and everything. It was great fun, and that's something I'm looking forward to again in the coming year. Is the fun that I know we're going to get around the anniversary specials. We had a bit of fun with The Power of the Doctor was good crack. That was more about the celebration of the 100th BBC. Um, and we'll get into that now in a second. But okay, so really quickly, what do we know about the 60th so far?
We obviously know that it's David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Tate is back as Donna Noble. We've now got Rose as well. Obviously not Rose Tyler, but
Yeah,
we have
yeah, Yasmin Finney from Heartstopper. Loved her in that. Obviously, Neil Patrick Harris, who's definitely not playing the Celestial Toymaker. Definitely not. Yeah,
you know
yeah.
we could be totally wrong.
It would
I
be
would
absolutely
I
so
would
funny.
laugh if we were so wrong. He could be anyone.
Yeah, it could be an incarnation of the Doctor or the Master, even. Rusty Davies is just bonkers enough to do it. And then we have obviously Shooty Gatwa is going to fit in somewhere. And actually, that's gonna become part of our theorizing now for a minute. So just as we record this, There's still a couple of days to go. We're hoping to release this on the 23rd, which is the 59th birthday of Doctor Who. Happy birthday, Doctor Who. Unless some big shattering news comes out between now and then, which completely dates this video, which is going to be hilarious considering how many takes it took to get this recorded. But I just think it's hilarious. It's hilarious. For full details, we'll save that for the bloopers. But right, let's go through it doctor by doctor, incarnation by incarnation, likelihood of how much we think they're going to show up. So let's start with the first Doctor, Joe Martin.
You've just made half the fandom go, excuse me, what now? And the other half have gone, yes.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? Do you reckon we'll get Ruth?
I don't know. I have a feeling that we may have seen the last of that storyline. I don't know. It's very much, is that Chris Chibnall's baby? In which case, is it finishing with him? Or, possibly. I mean, I would like it to be expanded on a bit more. And if it is going to be expanded on more, I'd like it to be with Ruth rather than another new face.
True. Like, because, I mean, as I know you've quite already pointed out before, is that nearly the whole tactic of this coming special is returning faces. You know? I would love to see it. I do think we won't see Ruth in the 60th. I do hope it's not the last we've ever seen of her.
Yeah.
Because I think as well, Russell, if we look at his tenure back in 2005, he knew how to work nostalgia. So he might leave it a little while, and then we'll have, presumably, we will have the nostalgia.
Just until you've nearly forgotten, and then he'll remind you.
Yeah. Okay, so the first Doctor probably won't see William Hartnell, might see David Bradley.
Yeah. Now, out of all of them, I feel like he is the one we've seen a lot of more recently, because you've had that recasting. He actually has shown up quite a lot. And now that we've had the power of the Doctor, I think actually the likelihood of seeing more of those faces is higher than I may have said it would have been if you'd have asked me a couple of months ago.
Sure, actually, do you know, and there's a couple of incarnations in particular who, because of the power of the Doctor, I now think are both more likely and potentially less likely, but we'll get into that now in a second. Second Doctor. So people have talked about this. Obviously, Patrick Troughton has passed away, but in The Adventure of Space and Time, which gave us David Bradley as the first Doctor, we got Reece Shearsmith as the second Doctor.
Yes.
So, you know, before Twice Upon a Time, I might have said, oh, well, sure, listen, they won't do that. They absolutely have. They've done it with David Bradley, so we could very much be in a position to see the second Doctor again.
Yeah, and I do feel like, particularly now when you look at the Doctors, because you have had that kind of loophole with the first Doctor, the second and third Doctor seem to have been kind of forgotten about a little bit. When you know there is a solution to that, it does kind of make you think, well, why haven't we seen those two? Obviously, you don't want to overdo it.
Sure.
You don't want to recast all of them. But it does feel a little bit like those two have kind of been forgotten about ever so slightly.
I think so. And for, like, it made sense that when they reintroduced the first Doctor when they did, because Peter Capaldi had been such a vocal fan of the first Doctor particularly, and, you know, we were getting to this, it was this whole new set of regenerations. It actually made quite a lot of thematic sense to bring the first Doctor back. But you're right, almost accidentally, we've skipped over Doctors 2 and 3 because, I suppose just to talk about the fourth Doctor for a second, we had Tom Baker himself appeared in the 50th anniversary as the curator, future incarnation of the Doctor. And it was actually something we'd been talking about earlier on, that actually I myself wasn't aware of, that he had been approached to appear in The Power of the Doctor. I actually wasn't aware of that until you told me.
Yeah, so we'll go back to the third Doctor in a second, but
sure.
Tom Baker was originally meant to be involved in The Power of the Doctor, and there were scheduling conflicts that meant that he wasn't able to. So whereas I might have thought he won't come back, he does seem like a less likely one to return. Because they weren't able to get him to do what he wanted to do, or they wanted him to do for The Power of the Doctor, will they then try again here? I think there is definitely scope for now for more faces to appear. That tiny clip that we did have of Ncuti Gatwa in the trailer for the 60th, people have been speculating that that might be him trapped within that kind of limbo that we saw in The Power of the Doctor, which then does open that door for any of those faces to appear.
Yeah.
And also doesn't matter about them now having aged and things like that. So maybe if that is the case, you then have the chance for those doctors who weren't able to be involved in The Power of the Doctor to be involved somehow in the 60th.
Well, big time, because I remember in conversation we had discussed whether Tom Baker might be, God bless the man, he's getting on in years, you know, he might just want to be like, listen, I'm good, thanks very much. But if it was only scheduling difficulties that stopped him before, maybe we will be seeing him again. I would have put the likelihood lower before that conversation. I would have said, well, he was the big special thing of the 50th. You know, maybe we won't do that again. But that's going to help. Now, to go back slightly to the third Doctor. So obviously John Pertwee, again, passed away. However, anyone who has seen the image of Sean Pertwee wearing that wig, now hopefully with some sort of editing trickery, Danny might have placed the picture somewhere. If not, we just look like we're doing a weird robot, which makes me think he now won't put the picture up just for that. It's uncanny. It's uncanny how much he looks like his dad. If he was to cameo, I mean, fans would be just over the moon. I know we've got a few responses lined up as well from Twitter and Instagram. A few people are saying you have to if throw money at Sean Pertwee until he comes and does a cameo.
You know what? I don't actually think that he would say no. I think if approached, he probably would jump at the chance.
I mean, it honors his dad, honors the dad's character, and also he was in the Five-ish Doctors reboot.
Yes.
Which I should be watching it the other day. It's so silly and so fun. So I would love to see that.
I don't know that he would necessarily want to do it for a long period of time. Like David Bradley has,
sure,
you know, kind of reestablished that character. But for a cameo, I think it definitely would definitely be good for fans. It just would kind of just remind people that the second and the third Doctor do exist still, just to bring those two back.
For me personally, because we've been blessed with how much we've got in Power of the Doctor, we've got Peter Davison, we got Colin Baker, we got Sylvester McCoy, we got Paul McGann. They all appeared again in the Power of the Doctor, as of course did David Bradley and Joe Martin. But as you said, we've had basically nothing of the third Doctor since, I think, Dimensions in Time, the Children in Need special from back in the day. Obviously, there was the visual cameos have turned up every now and again of, you know, a line here or there. We did, of course, have Adventure Space and Time, which gave us Patrick Troughton. We also, in Twice Upon a Time, had the regeneration into the second Doctor as well. Why do I have all this information, Ellie? Why? The reappearance, well, as you say, that limbo thing, I love as a handy, let's get some cameos going, because...
But it makes sense.
Sure.
Sometimes it can be forced. But yes, I think that it made sense there. And I like that they didn't try and make it complicated, try and make them young, there was an easy explanation for why they were older. And it just meant that those actors could really be there as themselves and not covered in dots all over their faces to try and de-age them, or not being there at all, and it just kind of being all done with computers.
Funny you should mention that. If we think of Christopher Eccleston, and who obviously it's well documented why he has not returned to at least Doctor Who on screen. There was, as you say, a slight CGI nod to him being, but we had the regeneration from the War Doctor into, and the scene's over. Just enough to go, yes, 9 is the next chronological Doctor here.
But he definitely wasn't there.
He was not there. Just in case there was any wondering. No, he was definitely not there. I would love to see it, but we talked about this before. However, the fact, and we're really excited, the fact that Russell T Davies is back as the showrunner of Doctor Who, that to me has killed my hopes of Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, I feel like out of all of them, even the ones who have sadly passed away, even those ones are more likely to make a return in some form than Christopher Eccleston. I don't think he will be returning. I know sometimes the actors go, no, I'm not coming back, and it's very much like an Andrew Garfield, and they definitely are. I think in terms of Christopher Eccleston, I think he means it.
I think so, because, and I respect the man, I respect his reasons, he's explained himself, he's been he's been absolutely fine. The only thing that gives me hope is his return to the Big Finish, or I say return, his arrival to the Big Finish audio dramas. That I never thought that would happen, and that has happened.
Yeah.
So
It is a shame because I feel like he definitely had more to give.
yes, I think as well because we knew. Well, I say we knew. We've established when we started watching Doctor Who, but it was known when Rose aired that David Tennant would be taking over
Yeah.
by Christmas, and so it's always kind of like, sometimes when you get a spoiler, you're like, oh, don't get attached to that character. So that's always hung over Nine's tenure. So I agree with you. I think there's more to tell there. Well, we know we're getting David Tennant back.
Yep.
So
that's definitely confirmed, 100%.
That is happening. Whether we get, kind of at this stage, Sean, is one David Tennant not enough for you? Whether we get 10 back, I don't think we will. But
No, I feel like the way that they've done it now is kind of good in as much as they've got David Tennant back, but rather than trying to explain why 10 suddenly looks 10 years older or whatever, they've put him as a new incarnation, and it's a whole different storyline, and it will be explained away, we hope. But I think if you were then to put 10 as well, he would look too old now to be 10.
Yeah. To be honest, and there's nothing wrong with it. Although we did just say, in the limbo thing. But
I mean, I suppose if it's in the limbo thing, then maybe it makes more sense. But I like that they've kind of, and also we kind of had that in the 50th. So you need to do something new. And even in the 50th, it was still a little bit like, wow, he's aged a bit.
To be fair, yes, a little bit. Speaking of people who don't age, Matt Smith. Now, as of recording this, Matt Smith over the weekend gave an absolute concrete 100% I'm not coming back statement. So I wonder how many minutes into the episode he's going to appear.
Yeah, this does feel a little bit like an Andrew Garfield.
It does a bit. And also,
now, we could be wrong.
Popular. And, yeah, of course, yeah.
We could absolutely be wrong. But I do feel like he may be a high contender for a return if there is going to be a return.
I think so. And also he is, to be honest with you, he's probably one of the biggest names at the moment, thanks to House of the Dragon.
Which does then maybe beg the question, actually, is he going to be back?
Yeah. Does it go the other way? Is he too busy, hot property to get?
Well, House of the Dragon is obviously massive now, and he plays quite a big part in that. So it may be a case that he makes a tiny appearance, or he may not be in it at all.
Someone who I think would be a good contender would be Capaldi,
who has also stated that he won't be back.
I mean, sorry, for the record, I myself will also not be appearing in the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who.
I will.
Right, you've just killed your chances of appearing in it. There was a great image floating around over the weekend of Ncuti and Peter Capaldi at an event together, and I'm just like, no, I have to see this pairing.
I would like to see that's a good pairing. It's like when people wanted to see Matt Smith and David Tennant, and it just worked so well.
Right.
I feel like the two of them would be really, really good, especially because kind of Peter Capaldi's Doctor was quite serious a lot of the time, and I feel like Ncuti's is not going to be serious.
I think his what the hell is happening here? I think that's probably the most serious one. Again, that might age like milk. One person who I actually think I truly don't know is Jodie.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe does feel a little bit too soon.
Yeah,
but at the same time, if we do have this kind of limbo situation, then it would make sense for her to be there, even if it's just fleeting, just a tiny little bit. But I do feel like, and I'm saying it's too soon. We are forgetting that this is a year away. So in a year's time, is it going to be too soon, or will be people wanting to see Jodie?
Well, I think that yes, there will be people wanting to see it, because there's going to be people who joined the fandom via the 13th Doctor. I think we might possibly be looking at a case like the 5 Doctors, the 25th anniversary, was Tom Baker didn't come back because it had been too soon since his Doctor had regenerated into Peter Davison's 5th. I don't know. Selfishly, give me all of them. Again, archive footage, get the War Doctor back, or... you can say this about anyone, but you couldn't possibly recast John Hurt. I'm sure you can say that about any of them. You can't possibly. Now, if we go very quickly to a few fan ideas, I wanted to throw out from Alid, a good buddy of mine, who says Christopher Eccleston's due return, Peter Capaldi. He also mentioned a couple of good names that I hadn't thought of. Now, these are not doctors, but River Song, of course.
Yes.
Yes. I thought you might be on board with that. Jenny. Jenny is a Time Lord and is still out there, as far as we know.
Yeah, do you know what? I've seen a little bit of speculation. I'm fairly certain that this is not the case, but obviously with Millie Gibson kind of having that kind of blonde and being quite young, and there's been a little bit of speculation around Jenny there. Personally, I don't think there's a connection there.
So instead of Shooty and Millie being the best of friends, it's father and daughter. Okay, that's cool.
That would be a little bit weird. Although I have also seen a little bit of speculation. I'm going a little bit off topic here, but about the character of Ruby Sunday. And how the name Ruby Sunday feels like it is a little bit too false to be actually, like, there may be more to it than meets the eye. Someone suggested to me that her initials were RS and there was a certain other character who also had those initials.
Reese Shearsmith.
Yep, that's the one.
She's actually the second Doctor regenerated.
I don't know how I'd feel about that, though. I don't know if I'd like that. I think part of the reason I love the character so much is because of the way she's played by Alex Kingston, and if it was recast, I don't know if I would like that as much.
We will listen out for your screams of either happiness or rage. And have you? So what do we get? So do we have any other fan shout-outs there?
We do. Jonathan has suggested the Valeyard.
Oh yes, Michael Jason is still alive.
Exactly.
He appeared Trial of the Time Lord, so alongside Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor.
Yep. So that's another suggestion that could potentially. I mean, is that who Neil Patrick Harris is?
Could be, because we don't know. I mean, the Valeyard is supposed to come between the 12th and 13th regenerations. Obviously, that didn't happen. So technically, does the Valeyard exist anymore? The Valeyard did get name dropped in the name of the Doctor by the Great Intelligence, so which suggests to me that there was a deliberate reason for reminding us of the existence of the Valeyard. Who knows?
Yeah. I also, no comment, just a picture of Rowan Atkinson.
Finally, let's get the Curse of Fatal Death Doctors. They are the truest Doctors of them all. We had Rowan Atkinson. I'll get the order wrong, but Rowan Atkinson, Richard E. Grant, Jim Broadbent, Hugh Grant, Joanna Lumley. Just bring them all back.
Let's have all of those. Look, we can just include your kind of Timeless Child, Morbius Doctors. Let's just add them in there. Who else have I got here? Jack has said hopefully 8. I feel like 8 deserves more screen time, but I don't want it to be forced.
Sure. Yeah, as in,
I feel like he had so much potential, and he kind of wasn't given the chance because obviously the TV movie was a flop.
Yeah.
But he has proven since then, in those small cameos that he has made, that he is brilliant as the Doctor. Paul McGann is brilliant, and it is a shame that we haven't had more of him, but I don't want it to feel forced if we did have more of him.
I agree.
Maybe he needs a spin-off.
Gimme.
Yep. I also have, you've just said this as well, but deleted footage of the War Doctor. Obviously, John Hurt is no longer with us, but if there was deleted scenes or archive footage that wasn't used in the 50th that could be incorporated into this, that would be interesting.
I would love that. I'm going to say something that is going to sound really, really, really critical, but I say it with love. I would love a redo of the lineup from the end of the 50th anniversary, because with the greatest love in my heart, it was the best that, Microsoft Paint had to offer. And we've seen how incredible the budget has gotten and how well done the CGI is and everything these days. I'd love to see that. You got all the Doctors in a line together. And maybe that's a very critical thing for me to say, but I'm spoiled, damn it. Spoiled.
I mean, that is an easy way to get them all in it, but it kind of also feels a little bit like sometimes you want to see more of it. Like, now that we've kind of been treated to, like, the power of the Doctor,
yes,
you kind of feel like you need more than just seeing them standing very much as a computer-generated image.
So Ellie is confirming 100%. all previous incarnations of the Doctor will be revived via CGI and voice control, and all future iterations as well. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
But I do think that when we had the 50th, obviously it focused on just bringing back pretty much David Tennant. Yes, we did have those other faces very briefly, but now we've had the power of the Doctor with those classic returns. Now it kind of feels like, that was a really good fan service for those fans of the classic era. But we're now kind of getting into the point where it's kind of like you want to see more of 11 and 12 and the ones who kind of like my generation grew up with and want to then see return. Like it does make me feel. I'm not saying that I'm old, right? I get it, but I finally kind of feel I understand how people felt with the 2005 reboot. Now, with Millie Gibson being 18, that's not actually much younger than I am. But when you hear about her talking about her experiences of Doctor Who as a child, and me remembering those things quite vividly and not thinking they were that long ago, you do kind of go, like, the interview that Ncuti Gatwa did with her after the revelation that she was cast, and she was talking about Amy Pond, almost like reminiscing about Amy Pond, like it was something that happened such a long time ago. Amy Pond wasn't long ago. And I finally kind of understand how older fans of like the classic era now feel.
It's true, and actually we might close out on this. It's interesting to think that 2005 until today is about 17 years. That's 1 year longer than the hiatus. If we think from Sylvester McCoy's last serial with Ace to Rose, obviously if we don't include the TV movie for a second, that's only 16 years only, I say. But anyway, that's 16 years. It's been back longer than it was off the air. And so of this era, we're now the classic fans,
Yeah.
Because there will be people who, for whatever reason, they'll be like, who's this Christopher Eccleston they're talking about?
Well, this is what we're saying. Like, Millie Gibson was not even 1 year old when Rose aired.
And
that's not criticism, because I do feel like there has been a lot of comments since the announcement of her as Ruby Sunday. A lot of criticism, not criticism, but just comments about how young she is. And I don't think it's an issue that she's young. I think it's kind of been turned into, oh my God, she's so young. Like, she doesn't know Doctor Who. Well, actually, she probably knows it better than some, because, I was still too young to watch it. Like I said, I turns out I didn't even watch it when it came back. But there was a time when I didn't watch it. In her lifetime, it's always been on.
Yep.
So she has literally grown up with it. She never had that gap. It's been her lifetime.
It is. It's wonderful that Who has returned. That the great experiment of bringing back Doctor Who worked. And sure, some seasons are better than others. But that's just the nature of television. But it looks like it's going to be around for some time to come. So what we'll do is we'll close it out there. As we get more news, as it comes out, we will, of course, bring it to you. And the best way to find that news is by subbing to the channel and on the various socials. So, Ellie, where do people go to stay up to date?
So you can find WhoCulture on Twitter and on Instagram. Just search WhoCulture. And then I can be found on Twitter. Just E-Littlechild on Twitter and just Ellie.Littlechild on Instagram. Maybe I should just make them the same one.
Probably
because
be. But then
I get confused.
Have different ones as well. So
I get confused every time, and then never check after this, and I always go, I don't know. Do I check? No.
So kudos to everyone who manages to find Ellie on Instagram. You will find myself on Twitter at Sean Ferrick, and you find myself on Instagram at Sean.Ferrick88. And the wonderful, all-powerful Danny you will find at Dan the Meeks on the various social channels as well. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. As I say, we fully intend for this video to have dropped on the 23rd of November 2022. So happy 59th birthday, Doctor Who. Unless, of course, more news has come out, in which case, thanks for watching this. What was the point? You're all wonderful. Keep things wibbly wobbly, everyone, and we will be with you very, very soon.